Over 3.6 billion passengers use commercial flights every year. But getting from A to B can be quite a challenge. In this series, we'll witness the bizarre.
I was thinking, what is going on?
The bust-ups.
As soon as he got within arm's reach of him, all hell broke loose.
And on-board terror.
I just wanted to get out.
All captured on camera by travellers around the world. From check-in to the cabin. We'll watch the drama unfold.
We didn't know if we were gonna live or die.
As passengers go crazy on a plane.
Pretty crazy.
This time, one passenger has a rough landing on a runway.
I was furious.
A flight gets bumpy with an unpredictable passenger.
They're gonna try to shoot me and say that I moved my hand.
All of a sudden, she would explode again.
No aircon in Cuba causes things to get heated. And a good Samaritan tries to save a drunk guy.
I was watching you and I was like, I bet he's from Australia.
Yeah, man. Australia.
Delhi Airport in India. Frequent flyer Rajiv Katyal has just touched down and is waiting for a bus to take him from the plane to the terminal.
Plane landed and it was quite hot.
A member of ground crew suddenly calls out at him.
He's shouting at me in a very rude language. And I start walking towards him saying, "What's up?" Then he said in a Hindi language, "Get away from this. How dare you come over?"
The ground crew want Rajiv to move, so he does. But he also tells them exactly what he thinks of them.
And I said, "I'm not here standing just for fun. You would have got your bus in line. I would have already gone there." And he was frustrated because the rest of the passengers were shouting at him for the bus to arrive. So he himself was quite frustrated.
The terminal bus finally arrives, but the two frustrated men continue to argue.
At this point, his rudeness and his body language provoked me. "How dare you talk to people like us? We are on duty, we are wearing all that uniform." I said, "Hey man, don't give me all that shit." When this heated conversation was going on, one of the persons said, "Let's not get into anything, get your bus and move out." And I started moving towards bus. And one of the person, very strong guy, pulled me from back, pushed me out of the bus while I was trying to board the bus. And second person, who was the main culprit who started the whole conversation, started making comments on my family.
The comments Rajiv claims to hear is one step too far for this businessman.
How did you push me?
But it's 2-on-1.
They pulled me back and threw me on the ground from left side.
The ground staff hold him down by his throat. Rajiv calls out.
Nobody is there to listen. And I could see one person on top of me and one person standing near my head.
He starts to fight back.
I understand the seriousness of fighting on tarmac, but there was nobody from security. And I could see there was a whole bunch of Indigo senior, junior guys, and they were all making fun.
After the tarmac scuffle, Rajiv claims he's dragged onto a terminal bus by ground staff.
It was really, really horrible.
Once in the terminal, he approaches the police, but they claim to have no evidence of any fight. So Rajiv decides it's pointless reporting the incident.
They let me go, they let Indigo go.
However, shortly afterwards, the fight appeared online. The clip showed the arguing and the scuffle between Rajiv and the two ground staff.
I got a call from a reporter, and this lady told me that she has a video with her.
The altercation was recorded by one of the ground crew, and somehow it became public.
The newspaper and the television, and of course the competition of Indigo, they joined together.
The bad publicity became so serious that the airline CEO wrote an open letter to the Minister of Civil Aviation, regretting the assault.
I was angry, I was embarrassed. It was quite a traumatic experience.
But the company did take action. They fired the employee who had recorded the incident. It used to be that what happened on a flight stayed on a flight. But mobile phones put pay to that. So we've asked travel vloggers, pilots, former cabin crew, and security experts to take a closer look at flights, fights, and airport antics caught on camera. When catching a flight, it's quite common to check in your luggage, but your personal belongings are at the mercy of the baggage handlers. Luton Airport, just outside of London.
Here we've got two baggage handlers there unloading a plane's worth of baggage. One of the guys is kind of diligently doing his job and picking up the bags and putting them in the pile. And the other guy is lobbing every single bag. He's picking it up and giving it a good old chuck. He just doesn't give a monkeys.
When baggage handlers are basically trying to get your bags on, they do have time constraints and they can't just be like carefully placing each one. But chucking them like that, I'm sure that they probably got in trouble after that.
But Britain isn't the only place where baggage gets bashed. Buenos Aires, Argentina.
The person who is handling the luggage is just throwing it without really caring about where it ends up.
They clearly do not care if anyone sees them. We know when we're in clear view of passengers, when we're at the airport or when we're on the ramp, and they clearly didn't care.
At George Bush Intercontinental Airport, Texas, some of the bags are ending up on the floor.
This person, he is just trying to make his life easy.
I imagine the passenger that was filming this was quite horrified.
That baggage handler was completely over his day. Those bags were far too heavy.
Whatever job you have, in whatever position you have that job, you should be doing it as good as you possibly can. You never know when you're going to be filmed in this day and age.
Finally, every traveller's nightmare has been uncovered with secret filming at Phuket Airport, Thailand.
Here we've got a baggage handler who is loading an aircraft and is taking the opportunity to rifle through passengers' bags and seemingly steal from them. Sadly, this is a problem that is commonplace at airports around the world. Airside crime is rife.
It's really shocking. He opens up one suitcase, nothing in there of anything valuable. So then he goes to another until eventually he's going to find something that's really important to somebody and worth money. It's amazing how brazen it is because he just doesn't seem to care. And there's several members of staff there, including the person who's filming. And he's just doing it in front of them like it's an ordinary thing. It's shocking because you have that fear. You always think, when I check my bag in, is somebody going to just open it up and go through it?
Don't put anything of any significant value inside checked luggage. We have to accept the fact that crime such as this is commonplace at airports around the world.
The 27-year-old baggage handler was later arrested and charged with the theft. Next, an unpredictable passenger.
Yeah, do whatever to me. Do whatever. Yeah, I do have a problem.
Intimidates an entire plane of people.
I swear to God, I'm not going to hurt anybody. But...
And overwhelms the cabin crew.
She has a fucking taser!
Husband and wife, Vince and Deanna, are on their way home from a month-long holiday in Italy.
The trip to Italy was a trip of a lifetime. It was a dream vacation.
We had no problems, nothing went wrong.
After travelling for 20 hours on 2 separate planes, the couple are preparing for their third and final leg of the journey.
It was 2.5 hours from Dallas to LAX.
Our flight from Dallas, it was a packed flight. There was no seats. It was fully booked and sold out.
High over the United States, an hour into their flight, Vince and Deanna are trying to get some shut-eye on American Airlines Flight 2489.
The lights had been dimmed down and everybody was taking a nap.
Vince and I are about to fall asleep, and all of a sudden I hear this woman yelling and screaming, and it jostles me awake.
Yeah, do whatever to me. Do whatever. Yeah, I do have a problem. I do have a problem.
It throws me off. I don't know what's happening. Is this woman being attacked? Are we about to be attacked? Is she seeing something that she feels threatened by, and she's trying to alert everybody else on the plane?
I do have a problem. I am crazy. We all are a little bit. But I swear to my hand to God, if any of y'all cannot find me, a day after today, my name is these kill me. How you like me now?
The woman seems to have issues with people sitting near her, although it quickly escalates.
It was a crazy roller coaster of emotions of like, what is this chick gonna do? And on top of that, I'm trying to film it, which my wife is telling me, put down the camera, because, you know, it just doesn't want to cause any more problems.
She did kind of ebb and flow, like she would start to settle down, and then all of a sudden something would happen to set her off again.
I've overcome so much. Don't touch me. Do not touch me. Here's my hands. I'm not here to harm anybody.
And anybody who says, I'm not going to hurt anybody, is probably going to hurt people because it's on their mind. So those are the moments when things become concerning.
They're going to try to shoot me and say that I moved my hands. So I'm going to keep them up here for everybody in this bitch. Ha!
Their cabin crew try to calm the woman down, but they're over 30,000 feet in the air with no backup. They need to make a decision on how much risk the woman poses.
Even if you try to land, you've got to land at the nearest airport. That could be 20 minutes away. And just the landing time and getting you down. So there is no immediate response to something like this.
Honey, I'm freaking 22 years old. Why would I do this? I swear to God, I am a normal person.
I felt really badly for the people who were sitting in the same row as this woman.
I was waiting for 10 minutes before you guys would even ask the girl if she wanted to move. But they asked this fat guy on the end if he wanted to move. Do you want to know what he whispered in my ear? Oh, I was that guy sitting right there in the last plane.
The cabin crew starts to attend to her, and then she starts complaining about the two people on either side of her. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, the crew realized they needed to move those people to safety.
The crew make contact with LAX to inform them about the disruptive passenger and have to remain constantly vigilant.
Being that we were in an emergency exit, when she stood up and she was gonna come to the back, one of the attendants kind of motioned to the emergency door and asked us to just kind of watch it.
Flat out, don't leave me on this plane by myself or you will never fucking see me again.
We're in an exit row, and now they're worried that the chick's gonna go for the door.
All Vince and Deanna can do is wait to see what the woman will do next. It's not just people that can cause disruption. Animals like to get in on the action too. Manchester Airport. A fox has made it through the perimeter fence and scurried onto the runway. If an aircraft hits the animal, it can cause severe damage and endanger the passengers. Any delay costs airlines, per plane, over £35 per minute. Authorities have to stop airport operations as a security vehicle chases it off the tarmac, allowing normal operations to resume. Over in Singapore, a single fox is the least of their worries. Officials at Shanghai Airport have to remain vigilant. They're located next to the sea, so need to keep an eye out for marine life that wander in. Rain is lashing the airport, making the perfect conditions for a group of otters to take a tour of the runway. Eventually, the romp of otters wander off on their magical mystery tour. Heathrow Airport, and a very British problem. A mouse is in Terminal 5's business lounge. Afterwards, a BA spokesman jokingly said, "The lounge admissions policy is very strict. We've asked our team to make sure uninvited guests don't get past the door in future." On every plane, there's always one person you can turn to. When they first appeared, they were recruited from the nursing profession, and the concept behind their role remains safety. The selection process remains intense and rigorous. They are still the angels of the skies, on hand to serve, help, and guide. But the cabin crew role, the passengers, and the problems have all changed, and the job is not what it was. So we've opened our confessional cabin and invited crew in to open up about the reality of flying. Oh, and some of their identities have been hidden to protect the innocent. The job can often be stressful, but cabin crew know how to let off steam.
Our crew parties can be very wild. We like to let our hair down, and you're back at the hotel. Someone will say, "Right, everyone round to my room." Cabin crew parties were always pretty crazy.
Crew parties were mental. I mean, you had all the alcohol off the plane, and you also used to have a crew room for every hotel.
The room parties are are really notorious. I heard from a cabin crew member that had basically thrown a sofa out of the window from the 13th floor up and managed not to injure anybody, but obviously got sacked after that one.
Vegas being the way that Vegas is, the crew will really let our hair down there. Krakow Park, those sort of places, if you get a layover there, because obviously quite cheap booze.
So of course, I mean, if you're all young, you're single.
You put those sort of people in a room together and give them a few shots of tequila and you can kind of guess what's going to happen. Just with a bit of alcohol and you're overtired and you're lonely because you're the other side of the world. So more than once that camaraderie has led to naughtiness or hanky-panky, whatever you want to call it, between crew. We used to take bets, right, them two, and probably them three, actually. I can see that going. And we used to take bets, you know, and then on the flight home, we go, "So what happened?" And then, you know, they'd tell us, and we'd look at each other like, "You owe me a tenner." And I tell you, the worst people, and that was the pilots. The sort of wheels up, ring off sort of thing. It was just one big party, really.
Midway across America, between Dallas and Los Angeles, a disruptive woman has cabin crew working overtime.
How you like me now?
Passengers sitting near her have been moved out of harm's way
Fucking laughing like the devil.
as she causes havoc on board.
Anybody, they're gonna try to shoot me and say that I moved my hand.
The woman is sat near the emergency exit, and the cabin crew are concerned that she might go for the door.
They were afraid that she was going to try to run over to the emergency door to try to open it. I didn't know how this was going to end. I didn't know if somebody was going to have to physically restrain her. At some point, I never physically saw it, but there was mention that somebody had duct tape, and I'm thinking, oh God, please don't tell me that they're going to have to wrestle her into a seat and like duct tape her down.
They got duct tape.
I was just praying that somebody wasn't going to have to manhandle her and actually duct tape her.
The situation is uncomfortable, but not an emergency, and the flight doesn't need to be diverted.
The entire second half of our flight was filled with this woman.
I swear to God, I'm not gonna hurt anybody, but...
You don't want to hear somebody say, "I'm not going to hurt anybody," but the moment that she starts to head to the aisle, you know, you start to worry, because now where's she going to go? She's going to run to the cockpit. So, you know, it starts to be concerning.
As the plane begins its descent into Los Angeles, the woman refuses to sit quietly.
Can I just stand right here? I just want to stand right here.
Flight attendants, they're trying to just like block her with block with their arms, trying to keep her in one spot and not to like leave her general area.
Please, he's gonna touch me. Why are you touching me? I just want to stand right here. I don't feel safe. I don't know. Just push me that way. Push me that way.
But when she was backing up, she was backing herself into him.
Oh my God, man, push me that way, bro. Go ahead, back up. Back up.
Just take your seat. Just take your seat.
No, I don't want to take my seat.
And at one point, she thought she saw somebody with a taser, and she starts screaming about a taser.
The taser's out. She has a fucking taser. Yes, she does. She's trying to hide it right now.
Which nobody had. It was just, I don't know what made her stand up and start to just freak out and want to be in the aisle, and she did not want to sit down or go back into her seat. But they didn't make her sit, they didn't restrain her. They allowed her to stand in the aisle as the plane was coming down.
The flight touches down safely at LAX.
804.
The moment that we land, you could see the panic start to set in of like, I'm screwed. This has come to an end.
I promise you, try to take me out the 86 game with duct tape, and to the rest of the world that ain't fucking here, it looks like I'm crazy. I ain't crazy.
Flight crew were in contact with the airport and organised for the passenger to be sensitively removed.
The attendants, the pilot comes on the speaker asking everybody to just hold their seats because they were going to have somebody come board the plane.
Ma'am, I just feel really threatened and unsafe. I'm here. Thank you. I don't want you to touch me. I don't know you yet. Okay? That's all. Do you have any bags? Yeah, I do.
That woman handled that situation beautifully.
The woman was escorted off by airline staff before any other passenger.
Do you want me to carry this for you? I don't care, bro. What else do you have? This one?
Once in the airport terminal, she was detained by airport police. Across the world, every day, millions of people jump on a flight. The cost of a plane ticket has more than halved since 1970. Low-cost airlines have made it even cheaper and opened up the skies to everyone. But there was a time when flying was a rare luxury, when getting on a plane was the pursuit of only the wealthy or businessmen, when planes had proper tables and the food was served silver service. And there is one British man who remembers that time well. Fred Finn has flown the most supersonic passenger journeys ever, and over 13 million commercial flight miles.
On one particular occasion, I've flown into New York, and a person comes up to me and said, well, Richard Branson would like to have lunch with you. I said, okay. I said, I'll be back in London in 2 or 3 days' time. However, being Richard Branson, he wanted to have lunch tomorrow. He said, well, we've got a 747 leaving now. I said, okay, well, I'll tell her that has to be obeyed. I won't be home after all. And I got on the 747 and landed back in the morning, and a car picked me up and took me to Camden, where I had lunch with Richard on his houseboat cooked by his chef, and I spent 3 hours with him shaping Virgin Atlantic Airways. And we put on first-class railway, first-class limousine, sleeperette seats, amenities, stand-up bar, and it's masseurs. And Virgin Atlantic became a huge success story. Except people perhaps got the wrong idea about a masseuse being on board.
And like every organised OAP, Fred's got a tip on how to handle any problems at check-in.
Whatever the problem is, be calm, stay collected. Me personally, I don't want to get a heart attack because it's a fault of an airline. Don't thump the desk. If you do upset that person, you'll get the minimum you're entitled to. But if you address the fact that we've got a problem, can we help each other? You'll get what you need, you'll get more. This is how I handle it, and it will work for you too.
But not everyone is as cool and collected as Fred. This is the moment one passenger vents her anger at an airline. While those around her lose their cool. Cuba. Former stewardess Clara Cabrera is traveling home from Jose Marti International Airport after a family wedding.
Estaba regresando a Miami. Salí de la boda de mi sobrina, plena fiesta, y sí pude tomar un taxi para el aeropuerto. Cuando subo al avión puedo notar que el aire estaba apagado y estábamos en pleno mes de agosto. Ya se sentía lo caliente en el avión. En los primeros 20 minutos de montarme al avión, ya todos los pasajeros que pertenecían al vuelo mío estaban a bordo. Una hora después seguíamos sentados y empiezo a notar, porque fui a Liomosa, y empiezo a notar que no cierran las puertas y empecé a preguntarme qué pasaba.
The airline hope they can fill the empty seats on Clara's plane with passengers from an earlier broken down flight. But with the air conditioning broken, the passengers are restless.
Comida al avión. No entiendo qué le sucedió, pero no manejaron bien y había mucho calor, demasiado calor. Era agosto. Una niñita que estaba cerca de mí empezó a llorar porque hasta el momento no habían dado un servicio de agua o hielo o nada. Y es cuando yo realmente cambia mi actitud, porque veo como le dicen que no puede bajarse. Al ver un niño chiquito llorando con sed, pues sí, me molesté mucho.
The passengers are at the mercy of the airline and the cabin crew, so Clara does the only thing she can. She kicks off.
¡Falta de respeto lo que es! Si yo pagué los 30 por este pasaje, yo no puse el precio, pero tú lo pusiste y te lo pago. Respétame, que yo soy consumidor, yo no soy un ganado, ya me fui de Cuba. Yo vengo de visita, yo no soy un ganado. Yo soy ciudadana americana, respétame.
The passengers have been sat on the tarmac for 2 hours.
Los niños, ¿qué? Los niños están alterados del calor. No, del calor, no.
But then the flight crew does something. They close the plane doors, making the cabin even hotter.
¡Abran la puerta! Lo único que nos pida, den un agua, den un hielo.
Llevábamos 3 horas y para cómo nos cierra una puerta sin ventilación.
Dile que te abran la puerta y te bajas, porque aquí hay una pila de adultos que tampoco se tienen que comer el calor. ¡Qué volada! No es solo los niños. Si los papás de los niños no piden los derechos de los niños, yo voy a pedir el mío, pinga, ¿eh?
Hay una política que una vez que estás en el avión, te bajas definitivamente.
¿Cuántas veces me decís que los bajo y nunca los bajo? Ay, Dios mío.
Tuve como 4 discusiones antes con el piloto, inclusive, que amenazó con bajarme del vuelo por amotinamiento. Después de 3 horas, estamos hablando de que a lo mejor habían 80 y tanto, 90 y tanto grados Fahrenheit. Entonces, dentro de un avión se puede aumentar muchísimo más.
Esto es hacinamiento, se llama hacinamiento. No hay aire, no hay aire.
Estaba impotente, muy impotente.
¡Abran las puertas! ¡Den agua, den hielo! ¡Abran ya!
Si te fijas, el señor que se encuentra delante de mí en el momento en que yo estoy discutiendo golpea la pared del avión tan fuerte que la hunde, le causa un hueco.
¿Hasta cuándo, cojones, esto? ¡Abran la puerta!
3 horas y media estuvimos. Y fueron 3 horas y media bien largas y calurosas.
After 3.5 hours, the flight finally departed. Clara returned home and posted the video online.
Yo puse el video pidiéndole a las personas que por favor no se dejaran, que empiecen a protestar, que empiecen a cambiar la situación. Era viral y las opiniones eran encontradas, que si fui muy chusma o si tenía la razón. Sabía que la comunidad estaba dividida por la forma en que me expresé.
But she is unrepentant.
sé que hubo un antes y fue un antes y después de ese escándalo. Refresco, agua y un buen aire acondicionado que te espere. Lo haría de nuevo, quizás con la misma forma para que se me entienda. No me importa lo que piense nadie. Estuviera diciéndole la razón.
The crew on the Cuban flight obviously had a difficult time with their passengers, and we're back in our confessional cabin to find out what else they can't stand about the customers.
The worst people are the passive-aggressive ones who are nice, but simultaneously absolutely vile.
The worst type of passenger would be the gin and tonic brigade. Early 50s with their Pringle jumper, tied around their shoulders and their chinos and their deck shoes, ordering gin and tonics. They would generally be the kind that would click their fingers at waiters or the air hostesses and cabin crew members.
The ones who think that they're a Z-list celebrity who, you know, get on board and think that they're someone that they're not, and, you know, the whole don't you know who I am attitude, and that can be rather challenging.
I remember really clearly this passenger coming on and he was sat in the front row of business class, and from the minute he got on it was like, get me a news, but he was so rude. He treated me and the cabin service director like we were nothing. And it went on and on throughout the whole flight. And when you land in business class, you have everyone's coats and you hand them out. And I just remember looking around and seeing my colleague writing on this piece of paper, "You are an effing arsehole." And I was like, you can't do that. He went, how's he going to prove it's me? He said, but at some point, either today, tomorrow, or in a week, he's going to look in there and realise that he is, in fact, an effing arsehole.
Notice served. We've all been warned. This is the moment a good Samaritan saves a drunk passenger from himself. Grace Cheatley has just had her first holiday in Europe.
I was just returning home from a 2-month holiday with my best friend, and we'd been in Switzerland for a couple of weeks.
The journey home to Australia is long and involves a connecting flight in Dubai.
It had been a 6-hour flight, so quite a long one.
On the flight from Zurich to Dubai, another passenger catches her eye.
This guy was trying to get up, the seatbelt sign was on, trying to go to the toilet. And everyone was sort of a bit concerned, you know, when someone makes a bit of a scene on a flight, especially when you're meant to be sitting down, it's sort of, everyone's sort of like, oh, doesn't know what to do.
The man has been drinking on the flight.
He is so drunk. All I could hear was him being like, I need to go to the toilet. You could see everything, you see his bum crack, like, it was just, there was no, like, he had no idea what was going on. He got up like 10 times before we got to land. Just each time the flight attendant was just like, sit down. And everyone around us noticed him. It was sort of hard to miss.
He's not being aggressive or abusive, so cabin crew don't feel the need to take any drastic action.
Like, they weren't aggressive, they were really, they dealt with it really well. Every time he got up, they would sort of just, they'd be straight up, no, sit back down. What was going through my mind was, what's going to happen to him when he gets off the plane?
Soon the flight reaches its destination and the passengers disembark. But an intrigued Grace just can't help tail the drunk man.
He fell down the stairs on the plane coming off, and at that moment I was like, well, I don't think he's going to be able to get to his gate or through security. Dubai is not very kind about that sort of stuff in public.
Then she hears music to her ears.
As soon as I got on the terminal bus, I heard him say, I'm from Australia, mate. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, gotta go help him now. Gonna go introduce myself. You're the best. It's amazing. I was watching you and I was like, oh, I bet he's from Australia.
Yeah, man, like Australia rap.
When they reach the terminal, the full extent of his inebriated state suddenly becomes apparent.
As soon as we got into the airport, it was on the ground.
Oh, what's that?
That's my passport.
Mate!
There was passports everywhere, there was money flying everywhere. Couldn't find his phone.
All right, pick up your bag. Do you want me to carry it?
No.
But Grace's good nature takes over. She's determined to help the young man onto his connecting flight.
He wasn't able to help himself.
They just need to somehow get through security.
Hold on to the bar.
We're back with our travel specialists, casting their expert eyes over the weird and wonderful world of flying, caught on camera. Once you've checked in, passed through security and bought your duty-free, it's time to settle into your seat. But not everyone behaves with the same decorum once on board. French football fans flying to a match have decided to add their own soundtrack to the safety briefing.
I've flown quite a few flights that has a lot of football fans, and generally it is very loud. You can hear it clearly in the cockpit, and it just continues throughout the entire flight.
The cabin crew, as much as they're struggling, they're putting a brave face on it, and actually the flight attendant that we're looking at here is actually got a bit of the giggles.
Yeah, it's definitely better than having like some uptight, flight attendant that's like, oh, stop doing this. She was having fun.
In the sky above the USA, things are getting territorial.
I think that all of us have been in a situation similar to this guy. It starts off with the person in the toilet.
I have a guy sitting next to me that thinks he owns the armrest. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna try to get some video of me showing that if he wants to tussle with the muscle, he's gonna get it. So I'm gonna bump him off and hopefully I get it on camera.
It's no one's armrest. It's both armrests, it's no one's armrest. That's the simple answer to it. You have to show some kind of respect for the other person.
He then closes his eyes, pretending to be asleep, and gives the guy a good old whack to the arm.
This guy just turns and looks at him in just horror, absolute horror. His face is just a picture. It's so funny.
The reaction from the other passenger is priceless.
It's probably not the way we would recommend resolving the armrest issue.
Sharing the armrest with somebody and sort of trying to claim it a little bit. It's just part of flying, isn't it?
Adults behaving antisocially is one thing, but when a child has a meltdown, there's very little anyone can do.
Probably your worst nightmare of being stuck on a plane for 8 hours with a screaming child. Hour 3. Hour 4.
The child continues to scream and continues to have a tantrum.
I mean, there's only so much your headphones can do. You know you're going to be on an aircraft in an enclosed cabin for 8 hours with a small child.
Airlines do sympathize with parents because they have to entertain their children in a confined space.
This is not that child's fault.
I would recommend that these parents download videos from the internet so that they are not dependent on Wi-Fi. Again, Wi-Fi is not available on every flight.
That crew deserves a medal.
Oh my God.
8 hours of screaming.
In Dubai, Grace Cheatley has befriended a young, drunk,
What's that?
That's my passport.
Mate!
fellow Australian, who she's trying to help through security.
So before we went through security, that was when I sort of was a bit more weary. And just before we'd gone in, he'd fallen onto the ground. We were trying to find his passport. We were trying to find his, to get through security, and you have to make sure you've got your boarding pass. They could have locked him up. Dubai, you hear some horror stories what happens over there. I mean, even in Australia, it's not accepted to be a state like that. someone had noticed, one of the security guards, and I was like, no, all good, like, just helping him up. And then when they told him he had to take his shoes off, I was like, oh, you're joking.
Fortunately, Grace successfully gets her man past the guards.
Okay, well, that's one down.
That is one down. What?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty proud. That's pretty good effort.
He pulled it together quite well. There was a bit of swaying.
Thank you.
Don't yell out too hard, okay?
Like,
we're not in Europe anymore.
This was bought from my mother.
And he was so good going through security. I was very proud of him.
They might have made it past security, but the drunk man is having problems remembering who his companion is.
Where are you from?
Geelong.
Geelong?
Yeah.
He did keep repeating himself quite a lot.
Where are you travelling exactly?
I'm going home. I've been away for 2 months.
Whereabouts?
Geelong.
Geelong?
I live in Geelong.
He just kept asking me where I was from. I said, mate, I've told you.
Where are you headed?
I've told you about 10 times, mate.
Melbourne?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Didn't annoy me. It was just funny.
The man is heading to Perth. So the two travellers' next hurdle is finding the gate for his flight.
Okay, hang on.
Australian gates are so...
Wait, what gate were you?
E67.
We made a few wrong turns, a few wrong escalators, but I had hand in hand and asking people where to go. I definitely think there was the chance that he wouldn't be let on the flight. I mean, by that stage, he still couldn't really walk properly on his own.
Eventually, they find his gate.
Got him some water, got him some food, sat him down, got him to scull the water, ate his toastie. I had half. I was pretty hungry actually by then.
Drink it all.
Not only that, she also finds some help.
Drink it all.
And I found these other blokes that were going to Perth. Once we found the gate, they were loving it.
She's just my guardian angel, you know.
I was like, he's not going to make it to his gate.
Grace's good work is done.
And off I went. And by that stage, I was happy to hand him over.
Once home, she tracked down the man to find out what happened.
He made it, which I found out afterwards. I was so happy to find out. We have found each other over Facebook. He said, thanks so much. Looking back now, it is just the funniest, most random thing that's ever happened to me. It definitely makes flying fun. Flying can be so boring.
And if you don't want to end up drunk on a flight, it's important to eat something. But maybe not this. This passenger is left seriously unimpressed with their piping hot food purchase. It's so hot that the food melts the glossy in-flight magazine laminate covering. Yummy. But some food on board is so tasty that you have to keep it away from fellow passengers. Not that her daughter's going to take no for an answer. Next, a sudden bout of turbulence during dinner causes this mess on board a Singapore Airlines flight. The turbulence injures 11 passengers and 1 crew member, as the sudden loss of altitude causes everything not tied down to go up. All the injuries are minor, but supper is ruined. We've seen passengers hit the floor, hit the cabin walls, and hit rock bottom. With air travel on the rise, more passengers mean more problems. And more problems can lead to more people going crazy on a plane.